From the High Definition Production Center of Troy University's Broadcast and Digital Network and Troy campuses around the world, this is Troy TrojanVision Weekly.
Hello and welcome to Troy TrojanVision Weekly. We're glad you joined us for this look at what's happening in and around Troy University. I'm your host, Aaron Taylor. Over the weekend, Troy University held its annual leadership conference celebrating African American history, and they kicked things off with a keynote speaker that has firsthand knowledge of the civil rights movement. Jordan Elston has the story.
Juanita Abernathy was the highlight of the leadership conference Friday night and says that she enjoyed the experience.
I enjoyed it. The young people were very attentive. You all are well disciplined.
During her speech, Abernathy discussed her memories from the civil rights movement and lessons that she learned that can apply to all ages. However, she did leave one message specifically directed at young people.
Message for young leaders: you have a great opportunity to lead others to where you as young people need to go. If it's politics, if it's education, or any civic responsibility, you are the leaders. The ball's in your court. We bounced it around. Now it's your time.
Her speech highlighted key points in the civil rights movement, as well as her experience working alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and she made a lasting impression on some Troy students.
I took away that I should not be afraid to stand up and say things that I feel I should say that are right, and I feel like I should stand up for not only myself but my community and minorities. And I believe that because of her speaking tonight, and especially to my spirit, I feel that I'm obligated to do more here on this campus. I'm obligated to be in more things.
I took away so much from Miss Abernathy. It was just amazing. It made me really appreciative of where I am now, and to be able to attend a PWI and to be able to be in all the organizations I'm in. But I also felt a need to want to do more, and I was just inspired so much from just listening to her speak and tell her stories, because she was an individual that was right there with Dr. Martin Luther King, with Coretta Scott King, and it was just amazing. It was just very inspiring.
The leadership conference wrapped up with an appearance from an actress most known for her role in the sitcom A Different World. Xavier Harris gives us a look at Saturday's closing luncheon.
Saturday evening wrapped up the 15th Annual Leadership Conference honoring origin, opportunity, truth, and spirituality. Students and citizens of Troy ended their two-day-long conference with the keynoted speaker, Jasmine Guy. One committee member tells us how they prepare for this conference each year.
Committee works year-round. We begin in September looking for speakers, and it really depends on availability of the speakers, but our chair, he lays out the vision and the map for the conference, and the committee executes.
Guy spoke about many things in her lecture, but her main purpose was that African American children understand and actually listen to the stories told by their grandparents.
And you young people, don't forget your grandparents and your parents. Y'all don't know everything. I know it's amazing to think that. Those stories at the dinner table, when you get bored and you start ding, 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 sit there and listen to them for a minute. That's how I learned. That's how I learned I learned that my daddy, used to shine shoes, and he knew how to do all that popping thing and everything. He grew up in segregated Little Rock, Arkansas.
Moments ago, this room behind me was filled with students and citizens of Troy. The students of Troy let me know exactly how they felt about such a big speaker coming to speak in such a small town.
I was so excited because all the tips that she gave us was very helpful, and it makes me want to do more in the community and on campus and just be a better person leadership-wise. And she also talked about us actually reading our history and understanding it and being aware of what did happen in the past.
Xavier Harris, Troy, TrojanVision News.
This week, Troy students had a chance to learn firsthand about the economics involved in running a state as Alabama Treasurer Young Boozer visited the campus. Haley Greathouse has the details.
The Troy University Economics Club welcomed a special guest to this week's meeting.
We invited the Honorable Mr. Young Boozer down. He is the Alabama State Treasurer, and he came down and he gave us about a 45-minute talk just about the different things that the Treasury Department does, the certain economic philosophies that he follows, and philosophies that he wishes the country would follow as well. Just basically his idea of what the framework of economics is.
To get a speaker like Boozer for an event is really about who you know.
I actually have a friend who goes to Auburn who had met Mr. Boozer at his inauguration ceremony several years ago, and he was able to get me in touch with him. So I got in touch with him and invited him down here, and he was very excited about doing it.
Boozer not only has the experience of state treasurer, but he also has a 40-year background in economics.
I went to school at Stanford, economics degree. I have an MBA from Wharton in finance, banking, and money and banking. And I've worked for banks across the country. I've been the CFO of an oil company. I've also worked for a holding company here in Alabama.
As economics shows us, the right input produces a large output.
Weekly turnout for our meetings is usually no more than 20 or 30, and tonight I'm sure we had probably close to 100.
Guests were able to hear Boozer speak about many functions of Alabama's Treasury, and he elaborated on his favorite part.
My favorite part of being the treasurer is operating, managing the unclaimed property function. Nothing gives us more pleasure than reuniting people with their own money.
Overall, Boozer encourages students to look at everything in life as a lesson.
Never stop learning. Learn everything you can. Everybody is a teacher. Everybody is teaching you something.
Chinese New Year officially started this week, but last Thursday in Montgomery, the holiday was celebrated a little early by Troy University. The event wasn't only a time to celebrate with friends, but also a time for Troy to make some big announcements regarding its Montgomery campus. Christy Henderson has the story from our Montgomery News Bureau.
There's only a few days before the Chinese New Year officially kicks off, but that didn't stop Troy University from celebrating the new year a little early and making a few announcements Thursday night. The Confucius Institute started at Troy University in 2007, and this event focused on the growing Alabama-China partnership.
Life is about relationships, and it really reduces to meaningful relationships, always reduced to personal relationships. And over these last 2 decades, we have been able to develop some very important personal relationships and interinstitutional relationships throughout China.
This event wasn't just a time to mix and mingle among friends, but also a time to make a great announcement from the university, where students at the Montgomery campus can have the opportunity to learn Mandarin and Korean.
The Center for International Language, and it'll focus on Mandarin, it'll focus also on Korean. And so we intend in short order to bring an expanded capacity to Montgomery in the languages, and also one that will enhance our economic development opportunities in China and also Korea.
The option of learning Korean at the Montgomery campus is a brand new concept, not even introduced to the main campus yet. Senator Gerald Dial shared why this progression of learning a different Asian language needs to happen.
Both of those are so important to this region and so important to our economic development. As we reach out to these partners, we begin to bring more industry in. It's better that our students have that relationship with the international students so that they can better relate and be better productive citizens when they go out into the community and when they go to work.
This year's Chinese New Year is set to begin February 8th.
We'll take a short break, but when we return, we'll see how the city of Troy is looking to make life better for stray animals. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You sure you don't want some? It's chamomile. Listen, you are extremely terrifying. Just the scariest undead subhuman thing on TV, and I really mean that. But I am worried that you could give my kids nightmares if they see you, so I'm gonna have to block you. So that's it. Oh, and tell the zombies they're blocked too.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Now back to Troy Trojan Vision News Weekly.
Last year, the country celebrated the anniversary of one of the major moments in the civil rights movement. This week, Troy University students had the chance to hear what role the media played in the civil rights movement.
Hank Klibanoff, co-author of the Pulitzer Prize-winning book The Race Beat, visited the campus of Troy University to host the annual Journalism Symposium for journalism students and the public.
It was definitely awesome. It definitely brought the issues that he brought up in a new light. Where I grew up, I've grown up in Central Alabama, which is it was known for being racist back in the day and for being segregated, and it definitely brought to a new light, and it definitely got me thinking.
I would love to attend more things like this and cover topics like this, because it is definitely inspirational to see how journalists, when journalism is done right, it becomes an extremely powerful force.
He spoke on why the news media had such an important role in the struggle for racial justice and why journalism is still prevalent today.
Well, newspapers at the time were the most dominant form of communication in our country. Everyone got a newspaper. Some people got two. In some cities there were three. And they were ubiquitous. And they had credibility. And people believed in their newspapers. And the newspapers used their resources to try to tell the truth that otherwise people would not have known. And as a result, people became enlightened about what was going on, and they wouldn't have otherwise. And ignorance is the greatest enemy of a democracy, and knowledge is the greatest friend of a democracy, and the newspaper coverage represented knowledge.
When asked why he wrote the book, Klibanoff said,
I just started diving into the stories, and the stories were just so compelling, and I just wanted to preserve them and put them on paper in a way that was faithful to the truth, but also that had the dramatic tension on paper that they actually had in real life.
Klibanoff had one piece of advice for aspiring journalists.
Be curious, ask questions, and do your research.
Samantha Charles, Troy, Trojan Vision News.
Stray animals in search of a permanent home in Pike County will soon have a new place that they'll be able to call their temporary home. The community gathered Tuesday morning to celebrate the start of construction on a new animal shelter. Sarah Singletary explains.
I am so excited. This is a historic day in Troy, Alabama, and in Pike County.
Oh, it's the greatest thing that's happened in Pike County since I don't know when.
All of the excitement is over the start of construction on Pike County's new animal shelter. City leaders and members of organizations responsible for raising funds for the new shelter broke ground at the shelter site Tuesday morning. It was a moment many in the community have been eager to see finally happen.
Oh, well, we've waited a long time, and so many people have done so much to get us here. And so it's exciting to take this next to the last step. You know, the next time we'll be here, we'll be cutting a ribbon and opening the building, but this is to see the actual undertaking.
This project started as an effort from two separate groups that put in many years of work to get a shelter built.
This is a project that had its founding in a classroom at Troy University and in the hearts and minds of all sorts of people in this community. It's a partnership from Troy University to the students, the city of Troy, Pike County, and it is a glorious day for this community.
Well, there were two major groups within the community that wanted a shelter big, the Humane Society of Pike County and the Pike Animal Coalition group, and it was just about impossible for us, either of us, to generate enough money to build the type shelter that we wanted. So in coordination with the city and the county government, they got behind us and we put our money in, and the Pike Animal Coalition group put their money in, and as a joint effort, we have now going to have a state-of-the-art shelter.
Now citizens of Pike County just have to wait a few more months until the new shelter is complete.
This facility provides Pike County a central, modern, and professional animal shelter that is a joy, a place that we can go to celebrate the lives of our animals, celebrate how they contribute to our lives.
Sarah Singletary, Troy, Trojan Vision News.
City officials say the project is expected to take 6 months to complete. Well, the University Activities Council is known for the fun activities it brings to campus. However, last week the tone was more educational as the UAC brought in a motivational speaker. Ryan Renfro has the details.
Troy students flooded into the Trojan Center ballrooms on Thursday night and came face to face with the story of Mrs. Kimba Smith. A story that for Troy students begins with a familiar chapter.
The story started out when I was in college, and I basically got involved with a guy that would be on campus. I would see him pick up other girls that were on the dean's list and sororities. And eventually I met him, and we ended up getting into this relationship, and he was a drug dealer. Never in a million years would I thought I would have been in a relationship with a drug dealer.
Kimba says that the relationship went on for the next 3.5 years, going from peaceful to abusive, and love turned to fear.
He ended up killing his best friend because he thought his best friend was cooperating with authorities, and the federal government basically had started this big investigation and they wanted him. Eventually I turned myself into the authorities, 7 months pregnant, scared to death, and he was murdered. And when he was killed, the tables kind of turned and the prosecutor ended up putting his drug weight on me.
And that drug weight amounted to 255 kilograms of crack cocaine. And Smith, though she never handled, used, or sold the drugs involved, found herself behind bars.
So ultimately I was sentenced to 24.5 years in federal prison, and I ended up serving 6.5 years after President Clinton granted me executive clemency.
This room may be empty right now, but it's no question that Troy students and faculty in attendance did not leave empty-handed, but instead left with the lasting image and the powerful story of Mrs. Kimba Smith.
It's just really cool how someone can turn such a tragic event and tell people and relay their stories back to other people and hopefully make a difference.
It's a really good example for us to look at and to just model our lives after, just to be aware of maybe the signs of people that may not be out for our well-being.
I've been very grateful to have had the opportunity to have a second chance, but at the same time, I've also been committed to sharing the story because I don't want any other young person or college student to have the experience that I've had.
Ryan Renfro, Troy, Trojan Vision News.
Young musicians from across the Southeast were on campus last weekend to show off their skills as some of the best around. Seth Hawk has the details.
Thursday afternoon, high school students from across the Southeast came to Troy University for the Seuss Honor Band Festival. Students played music to try and win scholarships and hopefully impress some judges.
Well, it means a lot because I'm coming to Troy next year, and so I need all the help I can get with scholarships, and that'd be a good scholarship opportunity.
Elmore County High School Director of Bands Anthony Fattori says his students coming here makes him happy because of all the experiences he had with this festival. And he explains that there is more to this than just the scholarships.
New friendships, learn something. You always want to come in here and learn a lot of things. But the biggest thing is to have a good time and have fun, and to realize that with music, it's more than just playing notes on the page, that you can actually come to a place with other musicians and have a great time, lasting memories. I remember when I came to this a long, long time ago, and those people I'm still in contact with today who played with me when I was in the band here.
The high schoolers that performed at this festival are the future of music, according to Dr. Mark Walker, as he explains what it means to Troy to offer scholarships to these high schoolers.
Troy University and the chancellor and our administration makes these scholarships a priority so that we're able to help these students finance their education and at the same time provide service to Troy University and the athletic teams and the music department and all of those things. So it's really a great thing.
Sequoia High School did an exhibition concert in Crosby Theater, and Casey Eubanks explains what his kids must have felt like after their performance.
Well, to be honest, I don't think our band is really young right now. There's a lot of 9th and 10th graders. I don't think they truly understood it, but they definitely understood it when they sat on the stage and they got the standing ovation and the crowd response. And I think we're going to be able to do events like this in the future just because of the experience. So it was wonderful.
Seth Hawk, Troy, Trojan Vision News.
We're going to take another quick break, but when we come back, we'll hear some offerings from our friends at Troy Public Radio. So don't touch that dial.
You make me wear my bike helmet. Taught me never to run with scissors.
You tell me to stay away from drugs.
To always buckle my seatbelt. And to follow the swimming rules.
You're always looking out for me and trying to keep me safe.
So why do you keep a loaded gun in your drawer? Here in the garage.
Closet. Shuttle box under the bed.
Where anyone can get to it. How safe is that?
How safe is that?
How safe is that?
You asked them to follow some safety rules. Now they're asking you. In fact, they're counting on you. Never let your gun get into the wrong hands. If you own a firearm and are not using it, please be responsible and be sure that it's stored in a safe place. Remember, always lock it up. For more information on firearm storage safety, visit ncpc.org.
Now back to Troy Trojan Vision News Weekly.
Each week we take some time to hear some of the work done by our broadcast partners at Troy Public Radio. As we do each week, we'll get another sample of Talk of Troy, the student-produced newscast of Troy Public Radio. Now let's take a listen.
It's the Talk of Troy. Voices and sounds from the campuses of Troy University. I'm Shanna Timms. This week, students at Troy learned firsthand what it's like to be a journalist on the race beat. And producer Grishma Rimal has the story.
Decades after the civil rights movement, race is still a hot topic in the nation. And some experts say more media coverage is required.
Quantitatively, we have fewer people covering race in general these days than we did back then.
That was Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Hank Klibanoff, author of the book The Race Beat, which he discussed with students this week on the Troy campus. Klibanoff also talked about his investigations into cold cases from the civil rights era.
So many of these were never known, never recorded, never covered by news organizations.
Klibanoff spoke as part of an annual symposium hosted by the Hall School of Journalism and Communication. For the Talk of Troy, I'm Grishma Rimal.
Chinese New Year is being celebrated around the world this week and at Troy University as well. And Rifeng Wang, president of the Chinese Students and Scholars Association, says Chinese New Year has a lot in common with another winter holiday.
It is the most important traditional festival in China, which is similar with the Christmas Day in America.
Chinese students at Troy find that celebrating the New Year in the U.S. creates a connection to their homeland.
We miss our country so much. We were very glad to gather together.
More information about Chinese New Year at Troy can be found at troy.edu/international. I'm Shanna Timms, and you've been listening to The Talk of Troy, a production of Troy Public Radio.
Throughout the week, Troy Public Radio can be heard on 89.9 in Troy and Montgomery, 88.7 in Dothan, and 91.7 in Phoenix City. Well, it's time for our last break, but when we return, we'll get a preview of the Trojan softball season from head coach Beth Mullins. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
The warrior spirit, it's in there. Always has been. Now let it out and take the world by fire. Train well and learn what it means to be a Troy Trojan. Walk with confidence, conquer, claim territory, and climb ladders. Know that you have the power to stand alone, but the comfort of knowing that you'll never have to. Discover your inner warrior. Find it at troy.edu/spirit. This is Thomas. During the day, he works in research, and at night, he's a warrior. Soon he'll have a degree from Troy University, a historic and affordable public university with flexible online and in-class courses, and professors who know their students by name. Do what you love and be great at it. That's the warrior spirit. Learn more at troy.edu/workingwarrior.
Now back to Troy Trojan Vision News Weekly.
The Trojan softball season starts this weekend, and in this week's Trojan Talk, we'll get a preview of the upcoming season from head coach Beth Mullins. Hello and welcome to Trojan Talk. I'm your host, Aaron Taylor. Today we'll be learning a little bit about the upcoming softball season, and my guest today knows a little thing about softball here at Troy. Beth Mullins, head coach of the softball team.
Yes.
Beth, thanks for joining me here today.
Thanks for having me. I always enjoy being here.
And, of course, softball coach and reigning Sun Belt Coach of the Year. Got to brag on you a little bit there. The good way to start off your Trojan career by getting that little feather in your cap at the end of the season there.
Yeah, I try to tell the girls it's kind of the Team of Year award because, it doesn't matter how good, your vision is. If they don't buy in and execute it, it doesn't really matter. So I gave that was like staff and Team of the Year award right there.
But you transition, now you're year 2, get that one under your belt. So talk a little about the transition and getting things ready for the second year.
It's some people say year 2 is the hardest because your girls just kind of think they know everything, but it's kind of been the opposite. I think, they do know a lot more, so everything's been a little easier to transition the freshmen in. We have 5 this year. It felt like we had 26 last year. So only having 5 freshmen and our seniors have been incredible and kind of bringing them up and teaching them how everything's been done. So it's been a smoother, in my opinion, preseason so far, but our expectations are higher this year than they were last year, so we've got to play a little bit better.
And of course, I guess with that experience that with the players last year, I guess it makes it a little bit easier to make the adjustment starting preseason and working into that. So.
Yeah, we didn't change anything we did as a staff, so it wasn't like we threw something new at them. They're very familiar how I work and how my staff works, and so it's very easy. They know what to expect, whether that's craziness or what it is. But they know how to get out there at practice and what we expect them to do, and they've learned how to fight and finish. And the couple of the key words we ask them to do a lot.
And finish, and that's something that you see talk about, and that's one of those things where some of the games last year you saw maybe looked good, and then towards the end the wheels fell off the cart, and I guess that's what you're trying to look for in using that term finish. So.
Yeah, and we use it a lot in conditioning because we tell them there's so much more in them than they think they do. When they think they're dying, they have so much more in them, and it's kind of, we talk about trying to win the late innings of games, and I don't know if we lost an extra inning game last year, and I think we were pretty good in one-run ball games, and my job is to just get them even better at it because, yes, whoever can win the late innings of a game is going to win a lot of ball games. So that fight and finishing at the end is going to be key for us.
Crucial. And let's talk a little about the schedule and the tough start of the season. I don't know who set up the schedule for you, and if it was you, but you got, 14 of 15 first games.
We're at home a lot.
At Troy. So that's got to be a good thing for you to have that many home games to start the season. So.
It is. Well, first of all, we have an amazing facility, so I don't ever want to leave our facility. I'd have 56 games at home if we were able to do it and the conference would let us. But we have a great fan base and we have warm weather. And last year it was brutally cold in a lot of places in this country, and a lot of people wanted to come south. So we opened our doors and we host 3 tournaments the first 3 weekends. So I'm excited. I think the weather's going to cooperate as much as it can, and we expect a lot of people out there, and I think the girls are going to put on a good show. And we've got a lot of really good teams coming to Troy, and that's exciting.
Well, and not to mention a lot of good teams coming to Troy, but a lot of good teams on your schedule this year. You're looking at a lot of tournament teams and including a couple of World Series competitors on the schedule there as well. So you've got a little bit of competition on the schedule here.
Yeah, our goal is to be in the NCAA tournament. That's our ultimate goal. So to get there, you need to play teams that have been there and know how to be there, and you got to not compete but beat them. And I think that's our goal, is to by the end of the season be in the postseason and know how to compete against teams that have been there before. So I love our schedule. I think it's extremely balanced, and I think we have a very good ability, and we are very capable of winning a lot of those ball games.
And let's talk about the overall the schedule there, but fine-tune it a little bit to the Sun Belt and how things are looking. I know it's early on, but looking at last year, transition this year, how do you think you guys are going to kind of fit in the pack there with the Sun Belt?
Yeah, Sun Belt's amazing. We were 5th in RPI last year, which is it's incredible. There's no weekends off, and there's no telling. I think it's a toss-up of all the teams. There were a lot of brand new coaches last year, and I think all of them did an extremely good job of keeping their teams extremely competitive. So I think I mean, our job is to win the conference, and I think this team is very capable, but I think there's a lot of teams in this conference that can win it. So it's going to be fun. Every weekend is going to be a dogfight, and I love that. It prepares you for the postseason.
It prepares you for the postseason, and an opportunity to, once you get to that conference schedule, maybe get that Coach of the Year award again at the end of the season.
Hey, I don't care about them. I want to be in the postseason. I don't care if that means we win 1 million awards or none. I don't care.
But if you make it to the postseason, there's probably a pretty good chance you might get that again. So
well, we'll see.
Well, let's see if anybody out there wants to check y'all out. When's the season start up for you?
February 12th.
We hope you join us again next week for another edition of Troy Trojan Vision Weekly. Have a good week.